Right, so like, follow and subscribe before even watching this video, and today's coding challenge is basically this. And the first thing I'm going to say is never write code that looks like this, because it's absolutely horrendous, especially this line here and this line here in particular. Really, I guess this little comment over here, but we're going to go through all parts of it and debunk what this actually does and see if we can guess what the output might be. But this particular challenge really is one of basically trying to muddle your way through to establish what this actually means and how this actually works. So let's go through this. And why do I say never write code like this? Because basically code is supposed to be relatively easy to read. You shouldn't have to be like an experienced developer to have to kind of like debug it and all of that kind of stuff. It should be straightforward. But let's just do it. So we're going to zoom in here and we're going to replicate what we can. So we're going to say that x equals 2 and also that y equals 5, which is about the only two clear pieces of code on the actual screen. And I'm actually going to go that x and y equals 2 and 5 respectively. That's okay. It's setting up our variables, nothing wrong with that. Now, we've got this if statement, so let's have a look. We've got an if, elif, and then else pattern. So we're going to kind of like just use this pattern. That comes from snippets in Visual Studio Code. Other code editors have the same thing. I just happen to be using VS Code. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to evaluate something. And the thing that we're going to evaluate here is this long string here. And then we're going to try and debunk what this means. So if x equals 3, well, we're okay with that. If x equals 3, we know that x is not equal to 3, so in that case it would actually jump over to check the next elif statement. That's perfectly fine. And then we're going to do or x is less than 5. Now already at this point I think I might be putting this in some sort of brackets to be unambiguous, so that because really like it's already becoming slightly ambiguous in the sense because Control Z and Control Z, because is this equals if x equals 3, or is it x equals and then 3, or x equals that x is less than 5? So like we're going to kind of like need brackets to like to defuse this. But anyway, we've got an or and then we've got an and here. Now, or x is less than 5. So let's have a little think about that. Well, x is less than 5. So this one's false, but this one's true. So I think that this is going to be true, but then it's going to join onto the and statement, and y is greater than 10. And so that's going to evaluate to being false. So y is greater than 10. So this is going to be false. And at this point, I'm going to just write print. This never gets printed. So let's just run this little piece of code and just see if we do get anything. And indeed, this never gets printed. So our first statement here, which is the U1, is not going to occur. So we can kind of like effectively rule this one out. We're not going to get the U1 because this line never gets affected, because it primarily we've just got an and y greater than 10 here, and that negated this section over here, which was this entire or statement. And even though this part of it happened to be true, so that was a true, and that made the or statement true, whilst this one was false, this one being false here with the and made that statement false. So that's kind of like how it worked. It was relatively okay, but I think we'd still break it up into certain lines. But we can turn this U1 into a U1 here. So U1, I'm going to use lowercase and uppercase. Now, that was okay. So we're going to move on to the second statement. And we've got to not x equals 3. And I'm presuming again here that this not x equals 3 is a statement on its own, and a not of x, and I'm presuming it means actually not of x, not of x equals 3, because otherwise it'd been like this, not of x equals 3. So I'm presuming that that's not of x like that. Now, x is 2 and not of x so that means it would be true and not of x would be false. So I think that would be 0 equals 3. And so I think that this statement here evaluates to false over here so far. Now, we've got an or statement over there, and then we've got x is less than 5. And indeed, x is less than 5 because x is actually 2. So these combined statements should evaluate to true. But then finally we got and y is greater than 10 again. Okay, well that's a big giveaway because and y is greater than 10 because we know that's not the case. And just like this and statement, I'm presuming it gets joined onto everything. That means that this line will never be printed. So print again, and then we can have a print like utide. So utide. But I don't think that this line is going to get evaluated for exactly the same reason that the above line never got evaluated. So we can run this, but actually, there we go, I'm wrong. So why am I wrong? I don't even know myself necessarily at this point. So if we actually just print this statement here, let's print this. So print, and then we'll put that entire statement in there. Let's just see what comes back. Well, this evaluates to a true. And funnily enough, if that evaluates to a true, copy that and paste that in here, that still evaluates to a true. Now, why is that? That's an interesting one. Is it a not x equals 3? Presumably, but I don't know 100%, but it looks like these two here are encapsulated in brackets. So if we remove this, this evaluates to, that evaluates to true, that evaluates to false. So it's very hard to debunk this. Control Z. Remove the brackets, but anyway, run that. That evaluates to true. So what we've finally left with here is a u lost at this last bit, but this one will never get evaluated. So print u lost. But what I might actually do is leave it open to the floor in this particular case. If anyone watching this video can explain why this statement actually evaluates, because we can see this here, it evaluates to being true, and therefore that's why the utide comes up. So the answer was B, utide. But if anyone can post any comments in the section below to explain why this particular statement evaluates to true, that will be fantastic. And if you like this video, if you found it useful, if you do find the comments in it useful, definitely do a follow, a subscribe, and a like. And yeah, that's it. That's I'm going to call this logical operations, but somewhat complex logical operations for a daily coding question.